Now, to introduce I got to thank you for doing this, because he had no idea this was going to happen. Neither did I. This is last minute, Rex stepping in, and he has, since I've been involved in this stuff, nobody has been more dependable and more supportive of that creed that I just read that actually means something to me. Nobody's been more supportive of that than Rex Rice, and I do appreciate it. So the floor is yours, my friend. Give him a hand. You and I stand up here and just talk through this stuff. You want me to try? Well, any way you want to do it, have a seat, or I'll sit up here with you. I'll keep you company. Well, and I'll come out. Whoops. I'll come out there and pass the microphone around too once he starts taking questions. So
I normally work off bullet points, and so I'm having to work off of a report that I'm looking at. So I'm gonna be slow. Y'all stop and ask me questions anytime. Can you hear me all right? How about now? Is that any better? That's what I was afraid of.
Is the mic stand back there somewhere in the closet? Yeah, I'll grab a mic stand for you.
All right.
I'll get it.
In the meantime, while he's working on that, let me just hit some highlights. I think we had a real good year. And I'm going to talk about the Senate a little bit right now.
I don't see it.
We had, and I've got to keep bumping my phone because it keeps trying to go to sleep on me. But we had 13 new members in the South Carolina Senate. We actually, and I'm talking about the Republican Party, we picked up 4 additional seats this year. So we had 34 Republicans out of 46 in the Senate. The Democrats were very gracious when we started.
I'm sorry.
Let's see what let me see how we do here. All right, Rick, can you hear me now? Yeah, I want to say the Democrats were very gracious, and they explained to us the first week that they could count, and so they knew they did not have the votes to be able to do anything that they wanted to do, so they were willing to work with us. And I think we really had a pretty good year this year. A lot of bipartisan votes. We had, even yesterday, we just finished our budget. Yesterday, it is going to the governor's office. Hopefully, he'll sign most of it. Probably the most controversial thing in there is the pay raise. I don't know if any of you heard about the pay raise.
I don't know if that'll help or not.
How about now? Is that better? John?
I can't figure out how to raise it up, John. Oh, here it is. There we go. Sorry, folks, doing this on the fly.
All right. Forgive that. How about that? Can you hear me now? Okay. All right, good deal. All right, the pay raise, we had the budget itself, and I'll just talk about it a little bit. And then y'all go after me, questions. Rick said something about being cordial, or what was the word? Civil. You can be as mean to me as you want to be. I can handle it. You don't look like that bad a crowd out there. But the budget this year, Senator Peeler, in the past we've had earmarks. Going back in time, earmarks were hidden in the budget, so you really didn't know they were there. Senator Peeler, when he took over as chairman, he said, we're going to tell everybody out there who's getting earmarks. I got earmarks. I got money for, if you know where Smithfields is, there's a traffic circle there. Let's see if I can. Yeah, it fell over. I got money for the traffic circle there. I've tried to, and I've got money for another traffic circle on the other side of town out there, that Olive Street, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. There's a 4-way intersection. There's a fire department there. That's the worst 4-way intersection I've ever seen, 4 stop signs, because it's very tough. I got money in there for that not this year, but last year. This year, I didn't get any earmark money. Nobody got any earmark money. So from a budget standpoint, we deal with the previous year's revenues. We've got 10% of the previous year's revenues that are now in reserve. So we've got a great reserve fund. There's over $600 million that we did not spend that's in the bank right now. So, when you start talking about government spending money, they usually spend everything they've got. We've got money in the reserves, and we've got an additional money in the bank that we didn't spend. We spent money, part of our money went to school choice. I think we put $40 million into school choice, which was we had a bill that we passed dealing with that, S62, allowing low-income children to get $7,500 and be able to go to a school of their choice, or they can actually hire a tutor. They gives them all kind of options. So, but we've got that. The controversial thing in the budget was the pay raise. And how many of you heard about that or had anybody say anything about it? If you listen to the radio, it was 150%, I believe, is what they said, in pay increase. It was actually put in as a proviso, and I'm going to talk about our pay. We get paid, we're down there 5 months out of the year, basically, in addition to what we do back home. We get paid $10,400 a year. And I get my paycheck, everybody gets their paycheck in January. When I get my paycheck after they take out my parking, my health insurance, retirement that goes into it, I bring home about $2,200 for the year in a base pay. In addition to that, we get $1,000 a month in district expense, less the taxes, because it is taxed. So, and that nets out to about $700 after the taxes. So we get, at this point, we get $22,400 counting the in-district expense, and that's to pay for us to run around the district, go to meetings, and I travel a good bit around the district checking on things, so it's paying for my fuel and stuff like that. Now, we do get money to go to and from Columbia also, but there was a proviso that was put up. They actually had one in the House that was put up that was defeated in the House to increase that in-district expense money to $1,500, or by $1,500, making it $2,500, which would bring if you want to count that as salary, bring our salary up to $40,000 a year. The last time there was a pay raise was in 92 or 94, I believe it was. So, and I've been in there, I got elected in 94. So since I've been there, we've never had a pay raise. I actually voted against the pay raise when it came through in the Senate. The House beat it. The Senate, when it came through the Senate, I voted against it. However, it did pass. So it's in there. The House didn't want it in there, went to conference committee. It stayed in conference committee. So the pay raise is there. My guess is the governor's going to veto it, to be honest with you, because it really ought to be something that's done, not in the budget and kind of a proviso, but in a general bill. I'm not saying we shouldn't get, or others shouldn't get, a pay raise, but I do think that it needs to be done with a little more daylight than it had. I think the governor will veto it. Whether it gets overridden or not, I don't know. One other proviso that I had in the budget, and I don't know, many of you may have heard about all the controversy in the libraries and some of the books, and it is not book banning, it is books that are in the children's section that don't need to be in the children's section. Most of the libraries are complying with that. We put a proviso in 2 years ago saying these books, sexual in nature, that are in the children's section need to be in the adult section. For some reason, we've got some libraries around the state, Pickens is one of them, that doesn't feel like they need to comply with that proviso. So this year I put more teeth in that to where the delegation can can write a letter to the State Library Board and say, please withhold the funding until you've investigated and they're in compliance. So that's in there. So, I voted against the pay raise, but I voted for the budget, and there's stuff in the budget that I think is good. I mentioned, the savings of the money, income tax reductions, significant reduction on that. We're not doing away with income tax, but we are reducing it. So over time, we're trying to get it to zero, but it's going to take a while to do that. But, we got all that reserve money in there, so I think we're in great shape financially. Without the earmarks, when Peeler said no earmarks, I think this is the best budget that I've ever seen since I've been there, and I've got 25 years in the House and the Senate, and I served on Ways and Means, and I'm now on Senate Finance also. See if I can find some more bills here. I'm going to give you some numbers here just for information. We had 1,474 bills and resolutions introduced in the Senate. We had 400 and, let me see, make sure. That doesn't make sense. It says 1,474, but we got 454 in the Senate. That 1,474 is House and the Senate combined. In the Senate, we had 454. We had, and these are roll call votes that we took, 446 roll call votes. Anytime we pass a bill or a lot of times amendments, there's a roll call vote, so you can go back and see how we really voted on it. When I say I voted against the pay raise, you can go back and check me on that. 146 bills that passed the Senate, 81 bills that are signed into law, 32 road naming bills. It seemed like every day we're naming a new road for somebody. We actually have, Larry Martin is actually going to have, my predecessor is going to have a road named after him, the 153, 123 interchange. That's coming up soon. I mentioned the school choice bill. That one is I think that's a real win because the Supreme Court had taken that away from us. We went back and rewrote it to where we think it's constitutional now. That's about 15,000 students statewide that will have an opportunity to go to get the education of their choice. And these are K through 12 students, by the way. Santee Cooper, we've got the failed power plants that are, if you remember hearing all about that over time, we've put a request for a proposal out to allow somebody to come in and take those plants that did not get finished and finish them. We're trying to get somebody, an investor, to come in and say, hey, I think I can take them. I mean, right now, power is a big deal in South Carolina. One of the big power users are these data centers. A data center will use as much power, or the big data centers will use as much power as 150,000 households. So that's, the houses are getting more efficient, but the data centers is keeping all your data that's coming off the iPhones and all that kind of stuff. That's something that we need to address. We did pass a power bill that would have a committee that would look at what we can do down the road. We still need to do more with the energy as a whole. One of the bills that I've been pushing for a while was failure to stop for blue light. If somebody's out here running and starts getting chased, it's nothing more than a speeding ticket. We've now made that a felony, so that I wanted a mandatory minimum going to jail. I wanted them to go to jail for at least a year. I wasn't able to get that, but I was able to get the mandatory or the felony, so they can go to jail now for a long time. If they kill somebody, I believe that is the mandatory. If they have a accident and they kill somebody or hurt somebody bad, and that
I got a question on the school choice.
Mm-hmm.
I read something online, I can't quote the whole thing exactly, but the idea was to access the money that's available to students, you go online and apply for it, and then the money is put in an online account. Question I have, does that mean that the nonprofits aren't going to be involved in administering the program anymore? Is you go straight to the state and get it through an online?
You'll have a third-party administrator involved in that. And there's a limit on the percentage that they can take off the top of that. You kind of blend in two bills, because there was the nonprofits that were doing tax credit bills. No, there was the tax credit bill, excuse me. There were tax credits. There was, in the past few years, we've had where somebody could donate to an organization. Yes. And then that was managed by a nonprofit. And then they would actually give scholarships out. This is different. This is coming from, it either comes from lottery, and I say either or, because it gives options, either lottery or general fund dollars. It would go in an account, you would apply. If you've got a child, you go in and apply. You could get $7,500, and then you have the items that are qualified that you could spend that money on, but it would be somebody certifying that you're spending the money properly. Is that your question?
Yeah, I was just curious about, well, it sounds to me like doing it the way you're doing it, there's less room for corruption. It's cleaner that way. They're just operating on state money and not donations, and you wouldn't have to make a donation to get the benefit of the scholarship.
That's right. And there were some questions about how some of those donations were being made by certain people and certain people getting scholarships.
Right.
So
like if you didn't make a donation, you didn't get one.
This is different. And I'm not opposed to that method also, because I do think we need to have different options in education.
Right.
So,
okay.
All right.
Can I follow up on what you just said with the vendor?
Yeah.
So there's 3 vendor fees that are actually making money off of the fund. One is Class Wallet, which is...
Remember, no mic, no talk.
I'm sorry. He was talking about the nonprofit. That's actually the ACE bill that you have filed. I know
That's
you're the
right.
sponsor on that bill. You were also the sponsor on S62, which is the ESTF, which everybody's calling the scholarship, the lottery scholarship. I've been following this very closely. Personally, I'm a parent who already has my child in private school because I do not want my kid enrolled in a government-run program.
Right.
So I'm actually very upset that school choice passed, because now this just eliminated that no schools can operate that aren't influenced by the government. And this is based off the fiscal impact summary from S62. The vendor fee, this is a vendor bill. I mean, Class Wallet in the first year is going to make over $1 million. In 26, 27, they're going to make $2 million. And then when the number of students goes up to 194,000 students in 27, 28, the vendor is going to make $26 million. And then the state's getting 7% of the fund as well. So in the year 27, 28, the SCDE is going to be making $115 million, in addition to the trustees making 5% of the fund, and they're going to be making $26 million. So I know the argument was, aside from the fact that, the school choice actually has its roots in the United Nations, which I don't understand why nobody's discussing the elephant in the room. We have this global Marxist takeover happening in our country. I am a blue state refugee twice removed. This is happening. South Carolina is just on a delay legislatively. I don't understand how all these bills being pushed by national nonprofit legislative lobbyist arms are having so much influence in what's supposed to be sovereign to our state. So aside from all that, I'm curious to know, I'll hold this question for later, but to answer that, when this bill in 27, 28, according to the fiscal impact summary, is going to cost us an additional $1.6 billion, assuming that none of the rates are inaccurate and stuff, I'd like to know where the money's coming from, but I'll hold that. I just wanted to mention the vendor thing. And the nonprofits on S50, you have people who are pushing that bill that have their nonprofits listed with guidelines saying they're affiliated with pushing a sustainable development goal number 4. So I don't understand how we're staying protected. And we're going to start funding an organization with accreditation that's tied to the bills that's incorporated with the state of South Carolina that started to keep the schools segregated white. So I don't even understand why we're going to fund some schools that are accredited by organizations that were racist. So
I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, you've got a lot of information. You've done a lot of research. Just quite honestly, you know a lot more about it than I do because of all the research you've done. I'd be glad to spend some time with you and listen to it.
spend time with you because you're the sponsor of these bills.
I understand that, but I'm saying you've got deeper information than I had when we were voting on them. So you've got specific information, and I don't remember, we didn't have that when I was voting on it. So I'll be glad to listen to what you got to say.
Hi. Miss Amy Williams.
Hey, Rex. The $1 billion surplus, will some of that money come by to the school systems out of that? Do we have any knowledge of what that $1 billion surplus is going to, does it have any tags associated with the money?
Having what?
Is there any designated slot that you've heard of that where that money's going to go? Will some of it come towards the school system?
You're talking about the money we have not allocated
The
at
$1
this
billion
point?
surplus, right?
I mean, at this point, we're still trying to determine where to spend that money. That's why we didn't spend that money. I mean,
So you pick that up again in January, or will some work over the
we'll
summer?
look at it again in January, yes. I mean, I would anticipate some of it coming to the schools. I mean, right now, the schools themselves, statewide, I mean, we're spending $18,000 per student. And my number's closed on that. If you quote me on that, I'm sure I'm off.
So the student credits for charter schools increased, and that hurt us to the point where at the second reading of the operational budget, we ended up having, I'm sure you know this, we had to cut bus drivers to 2% and administration to 2% raises. We ended up, through alignment, vertical alignment, we were able to resolve that and give those raises back. But it was nip and tuck there for a while.
You're talking about we as in the Pickens County School District?
That's right,
Okay.
SDPC. So I was just curious, if you had any intel on what was going to be done with that surplus.
I can't tell you that right now because I don't.
Another question? Yeah. Mr. Mason Sims.
So Rex, I know we had our interview on my podcast about a couple weeks ago, but those of you that probably have not watched it, just kind of tell us about the fund bill that you are working on.
Which one?
The one about the golf carts.
Oh, that allows the cities. In the past, we have had golf cart bills all over the state doing all kind of different things. So what we've done is turn that over to the locals so that the city or the county can set their own golf cart rules. Right now, you can't drive a golf cart at night. The city can allow that to happen, and they can also allow where it's to go. Also, it can't go on the road over 35 miles an hour, though. Is that it? All right.
Senator, first of all, I want to thank you very much for how you represent us in the county and in the state. And that's number one. I've known you since the Pickens County Taxpayers Association, and I already respected you back then. But I have three small questions, and in this order. And number one question is, can you do anything to put a halt on that roundabout on Highway 11 near Aunt Sue's? That would be a total disaster. That's number one. Number two, can you get the governor's ear to deputize all law enforcement in this state, like Governor DeSantis did in Florida, to cease and stop us being a sanctuary state for illegals and get them out of here? And then number three is a dumb question. I don't know how many people are aware of these chemtrails by these jets, literally clouding up these skies daily. If we get a clear sky for 100% of the day, it's a miracle. And they're purposely doing this to control the weather. I've been researching this for 2.5 years. It's literally driving me to where that's all I do most of the time, and I'm just fed up. The entire world is having that, but DeSantis stopped it. He put a halt on it in Florida. So did the governor in North Dakota. Can you put an ear on Governor McMaster to get on that too? Because they're going to seize those planes from those pilots that are doing this. But it's somebody in control. These high top elitists are poisoning us. And it sounds stupid, but if you're not aware of this, these storms that are out there right now, this is not God stuff. This is all man-made crap coming from them. And just Google that. Just Google chemtrails, and you'll see what's happening around all the world.
Can I start backwards on your questions?
Yes.
Since you're on chemtrails. I do have a bill in there that would ban the release of chemicals. I mean, not a plane from flying over, but the release of anything to alter our environment. I've got a bill that's in. I need information on that. I've talked to the chairman of the committee that the bill is in. He said, you bring me enough documents to back your bill up and we'll have a hearing on it. So we're moving in that direction. There's also a bill in the House. What was the second one?
Second one is the governor's ear to get the law enforcement, deputize all law enforcement to get the illegals out of here so they can arrest them and round them up and ship them out of South Carolina.
You know, obviously I can tell the governor that. I can get his ear. I don't know that I can make him do that. You know, but they are doing a pretty good job in that direction. And then the third one is the roundabout.
Roundabout on Highway 11.
Representative Hyten and I had a meeting yesterday with Secretary Powell, who's over our DOT, and gave him some alternate ideas. You know, I don't know who's for it and who's against it. I have not heard anybody other than one person, and I had a conversation today with an individual that has a business right there that does want the roundabout. But the majority of the people that I've talked to do not want the roundabout. I've given them my idea on how to at least deal with that intersection. They don't like my idea. It's outside the box because it doesn't fit the manual, the arms manual. But they've got, right now, they've got the speed coming down the hill at 45 miles an hour. I believe it needs to go to 35, 45, 35, and then it needs to have a radar unit on the intersection. Anybody over that speed and a camera. I'm not saying write tickets and send them tickets, but I'm saying take pictures and have that radar. If in Bristol, Tennessee, there's an intersection up there that says if you run a red light up there, it's going to be a picture of your car and you're going to be sent something on it. You know, people know that they're being watched and the radars is slowing them down. And I think about some of in North Carolina, there's some roads that if you're coming down on the truck, it tells you you're going too fast for a curve coming ahead. We should be able to do that so that if anybody's exceeding 35 through that intersection, that the lights go off. I mean, that's my solution to it. You know, there's a question about realigning a little bit of that, but I don't think the traffic circle is the answer. I don't think a red light is an answer. I think you got to get traffic down to 35. After everything's said and done that I just said, we need to put Evel Knievel up there on his motorcycle and let him write some tickets. So
That's at the intersection there at Aunt Sue's?
at Aunt Sue's.
I have to say, just throw this in. My fifth grade teacher at Concrete Elementary School, Miss Peggy Elrod, got killed in that intersection a few years ago. That is a dangerous spot.
Yeah.
Fine lady.
Yeah, well, we're on this side of 11, but we're right there in Pumpkin Town. And I hear it's just such an important topic to the community. I don't cross that highway a lot, but I'm curious what you think of Senator Rice's solution that he just suggested and what you think the best solution would be, because I don't really have a strong opinion right now, but I'm kind of curious what the best solution is so I can get behind it.
I mean,
And I think, Dina, you wanted more context? Yeah.
the reason that I have come up with the solution that I have, and that's a unique intersection in one fashion. It is at the bottom of a hill. They put the delineators in that people started running over. When you were coming down the hill, you couldn't see them though. Because if it was flat, like the 178 intersection on 11, it's flat. A lot of those places are flat. This one had the perfect curve into it. so that when you were coming down the hill, you couldn't even see they were there, but they lined up with the light, or the lines. This to me is the way to fix it, short of putting in a circle or a red light. If you put a red light in there, I mean, the trucks coming down the hill, they're gonna run over somebody because they won't be able to stop. Putting a circle in, somebody's gonna run through it. It's several $1 million. It's not a congestion issue. I believe circles can be used where congestion issues are, not necessarily where you have a safety issue. However, they are safer than crosswalk. At 55, that intersection's dangerous. If you can get people to slow down, it's going to be better. Did that?
Yeah, but I wanted to hear what he thought of your solution and what you think should be your solution.
The circle for semi-trucks. The circle, and I'm not against semi-trucks, because I drove one for 2 million miles or better, and that was many years ago. And I'm not against truckers, but at the same token, I'd rather have the truckers slow down maybe 35 miles an hour, like you said, Senator. But a roundabout, they're 60, 75 feet long. They're going to go over that, meaning they're not going to take the circle. They can't. It's impossible.
They're designed to have rollover curves
Right.
for that
Yeah,
reason.
and they're going to do that anyway. But right now, it's a hazard anyway. That red light is blinking for New Hope Road. If you don't read that sign there, you think it's a four-way stop. The first time I went there, I'll be honest with you, I didn't read that sign. So I started to pull out. I said, wait a minute, there's a car not stopping. And then I read the stupid sign. How many people's not going to read the sign? And they're going to pull right out and get T-boned right now. It'd be better right now if it was, I hate to say it, it'd be better if it was a four-way stop, as much as a truck has to get going again and then take the hill heading towards the lake. I mean, they've done it before, but it's going to be a lot more noise for the neighbors that live there, because they're either going to be using their Jake brakes coming down, and you're going to hear that rattling sound, and then you're going to hear them throttling up. And if you live near 11 like we used to, you're going to hear those exhausts. Some of those guys are running straight pipes with no mufflers. And it's a tough call.
Well,
but
you
I
bring
really
up-
don't like, I'm kind of against Big Brother, like they're doing all over the world with a camera watching all the time. You can't even blow your nose or you'll get a ticket. That part I'm a little skeptical on.
I'm not
that.
saying you get a ticket.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you have cameras there.
Right.
To
Yeah, it's
observe
something-
what's going on.
Something has to be done. I understand that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you bring
And
up,
I
and you do bring up.
I know
a-
what you're talking about, man.
You do bring up a good point, and I'll bring it up to DOT, that we do need to put signage up at the crossroads
Yeah.
saying that mainline traffic does not stop. I don't
Right.
think there's any signage
Yeah,
to that.
thank you, sir.
Yeah.
The cameras would have the same effect as, if I'm reading you right, the cameras would have the same effect as parking a highway patrol car there with not anybody in it. Just the idea that a state trooper car, I've seen them do that, like sit them beside the road and people slow down even though there's not anybody in it.
Yeah.
I've got a question on a different subject, and I don't mean to hit you with one that's a little touchy, but the Curtis Loftus vote.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's going to come up sooner or later, and so if you want
Curtis, I know Curtis is coming 2 weeks, in a month.
2 or 3 weeks into the month,
Yeah.
June the 29th, I believe it is.
And I'll say this, and I'll be glad to get into as much detail as you want here. I mean, I've got a report. I served on that subcommittee reviewing that situation. The way that it is being portrayed out in the public, that people think that there was an accounting error, and he's being penalized for that accounting error. And I'm going to give you enough information to probably get me in trouble here. I've got documents. I've got over 600 pages of documents. That accounting error went back to, and I'm going to say this, it was created because they were trying to change accounting systems. And that was back in 2015. In 2015, 16, 17, there was 22,000 entries made into an account that was not supposed to have any value in it. That account ended up accumulating at that point to $1.56 billion, not million, $1 billion. And after that, there were some additional accounting errors made, and there was some additional adjustments made to that account to bring it up to $1.8 billion. The $1.8 billion was known by the treasurer's office. I don't know, I can't find anywhere in this, and I've asked that question. We had to hire an accounting company to come in. We spent $3 million because Curtis Loftus came in and said, that money is real, you can spend it. If you go into the Senate page on our Senate website and go into the Finance Committee, there's documents in there, there's videos in there. Curtis, to this day, has not ever said that we should have said, time out, we got a problem, that we've got a balance in here that's not right, I need some help fixing it. If he'd have come in and said that, I think it would have gone a long ways. His office was aware of these eras from 2016, 2017, all the way to 2023. Today, unless they've made a correction here in the last 60 days, that era is still on the books today. And we had, sometimes when you come in and say, guys, it's over my head, it's lost, I need your help fixing the thing, then we all get together and fix it. But to this day, he has not said, he's not taken responsibility for it. When the treasurer's office was aware of it for over 6 years, but the treasurer himself was not aware of it, I see a problem. And that's where I
thought you deserved the opportunity to explain the vote.
Yeah.
So, and I skipped over this gentleman here a second ago, so let me give him his chance.
Thanks for being here, Senator Rice. Appreciate
Yes.
you representing our district. My name's Charlie Massayer, and I represent Moms for Liberty National, but I live here locally. My kids go to Pickens schools, and my wife's a teacher at Dacusville Middle. Anyways, I was listening to you earlier talk about the banning of books, or how the opposition likes to say we ban books. We've got a great group from Moms for Liberty here tonight, and I'm asked all the time at the national level from representatives all around the country, how do we message better on this whole book banning thing? And I often tell them, don't tell them it's book banning, which I noticed you didn't, but tell them it's we advocate for age-appropriate books. And that's it in a nutshell. We advocate for age-appropriate books, and that's all we're doing. We've never asked for a book to be banned anywhere. And our focus is on school libraries, of course. We don't want the smut in public libraries either, but it's kind of reminds me of the old video stores, right, where they had the curtain and the porn stuff behind the curtain. I mean, if they want to put stuff behind the curtain and give it that distinction, that's one thing, but we want to keep that smut out of our kids' hands. I wanted to ask you a different question. Senator Kimbrell, who's supposed to be here tonight, had in the last day of session or second to last day dropped a bill in the Senate. I think it was number 651 to found an Office of Parental Rights. And I wanted to know what you thought about that, and if you guys had the stomach to push that hard come January, an Office of Parental Rights like Florida established. Now, Florida did it through the AG's office, but Josh, of course, is trying to do it through state statute.
I have not had a chance to look at that bill, but obviously that's something that I would generally support, if
Okay.
that's your question, too.
All right. We want as much support on that as we can, all right?
Yeah. And back to your issue on the libraries, too. I mean, this is about protecting our children and the innocence of our children, until they're adults, keeping the adults from having anything.
That was me. And hang on just a second. I should have pointed out that President, Chairman, what's your title? Princess, Queen?
Was chair of the
Was for Liberty.
chapter, but we just reelected officers, and Dina is the new chair.
So anyway, like the gentleman said, Moms for Liberty in Pickens County is well represented here tonight. So thank you guys for coming. And this lady hasn't had a chance to ask a question yet.
Thank you. I have two questions, actually. One is quite simple. I wondered if you could look into getting a rumble stick or something right outside here of this complex, because on Zion School Road, it's like a speed trap. And when they see the stop sign at the corner, they hit their brakes, they skid, their cars literally turn the other way. And a couple of seniors here have been blamed for accidents when they have to really go slow just to even get up the hill to look out. And I wondered if something could be done to slow down those speeders.
You know, I don't know. It's hard to change habits. I think your question was putting speed bumps in? Was that what you just
speed
said?
bumps, yes, something to slow them down.
The problem with speed bumps, and we've looked at them, and there's isolated places that you can use them. The state will approve them on isolated areas. The county has them in certain areas. The biggest problem with speed bumps is emergency vehicles. Just for example, EMS. If you're on a stretcher and the ambulance is going down the road and hits the speed bump, you know, it's fairly severe to the patient in the back.
Right.
Also, it slows down the response time for the fire trucks. You know, I mean, I'll be glad to talk to the sheriff and try to see what we can do, but it's hard to change habits. It's just like we were talking about Highway 11. I mean, the speed limit's 55 up there, 75 or more up there. So, but I'm aware of the issue here, and, you know, I'll be glad to try to see what we can do.
Okay, thank you. My other question, and it may be a little bit touchy, and if I'm out of order, please let me know, but I'm new in South Carolina, and to me, voting is a sacred privilege. And I'm from up north, but I lived in Georgia 20 years, and when I would see Lindsey Graham, you know, on the TV, on Fox and all, I felt he was pretty good, you know. And I got a letter recently in the mail about someone that was as much as literally calling him corrupt, you know, in so many words. Do we, you know, that's going to, I guess, run against him. Do we really have a problem here, or is it someone just saying things to get votes?
You saying, do we have a problem
With Lindsey Graham?
what?
I'm
not sure I understand the question. You're asking me about Lindsey Graham, or you're asking me about voter corruption?
I'm asking about Lindsey Graham.
I mean, I think everybody's entitled to their opinion.
All right. Okay. It's worth the question. Yeah. All right. Sorry. Okay, because I asked a couple of people, and what I got told, you know, by people that live here, and all they said was, well, he kind of goes with the flow, whatever's popular, you know, and when I vote, I want to vote for someone that's doing the best for South Carolina, you know. My friends are right. Okay, well, I feel we have genuine Republicans here, and even though we'll have, you know, issues on both sides.
Let me hit on something right
Please
quick.
do.
And I'm not going to hit on Lindsey as much as I am what's going on in Washington. And we just passed a bill, right, the last day of session, or the last couple of days of session, calling for term limits in Washington. Because once you get to Washington, the first thing you start doing is raising money. If you look at and other elected officials having their accounts, people ask me, would I go to Washington or run for Congress? You know, I did not. I tried it in 2010, and I learned a lot. I spent a lot of money and worked my tail off, and it's just hard to get to the people. So you got to have a lot of money to get to the people. So an individual trying to run against somebody that's established is very tough. Up there, I mean, and I'm going to back up. Was it 4 years ago when Lindsey ran that had 6 people run against him, maybe 5 or 6? I don't remember how many. 8?
But, you know, Judge Kavanaugh would not be on the Supreme Court if it was not for Lindsey Graham. So I give him credit for that. I really do. So he has done some really good things.
Well, all I was going to say there is if you got 6 or 7 or 8 people on the ballot and you win an election without a runoff, in other words, you're getting more than 50%, and you got that many people, he's getting his message out to people with the money that he has raised. in Washington and all the support.
So you feel he's good, he's doing a good job? I mean, I want your opinion, honestly.
It depends on if you're far right or in the middle, or it really depends.
He's asking if you support Lindsey Graham.
I'm not going to answer that question right now.
I wanted to say
And I am going to say this. I think Washington needs fixing. They are broken. They are spending money that they don't have, and it doesn't. It's probably not going to matter to anybody but him, right over there, because he's got to pay the debt. The rest of us are going to walk away from it and leave it up to him to pay the bills, and that's the problem. And we've got to quit spending money, and we've got programs. We got 50% of the people that are in the United States that are receiving some kind of government assistance. A lot of it may be in this room, but we've got to understand that we can't keep spending money like we are. When I ran for Congress in 2010, I think we were 14 trillion in debt. At that, we're now 35 trillion. Somebody's probably 37. I can't keep up with the debt clock. We've got to break the cycle of spending money, and that Washington is broken. And I'm not going to answer whether I'm going to support Lindsey or not, because he has not asked me to support him. But I am going to say this: every politician in Washington got to balance a budget. That's the biggest threat. I mean, we've got people that are not legally in this country, but our failure to balance a budget is the biggest threat to this United States, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm changing subjects, but talking about the Scout motor deal.
Yep.
Was that a bad deal? Because apparently I've heard that if they're making electric vehicles, that South Carolinians will have to go out of state to buy them. Is that true? And was that a bad deal?
I don't
Because-
think they have to go out of state. They got to have dealers here. They can't buy direct from Scout Motors. Was it a bad deal? I'll tell you. Give me 10 years and I'll tell you. Was BMW a bad deal for the upstate? It was at the time. At this point in Scout Motors history, if you go back in time and talk about BMW, where they were 3-4 years down the road, just like Scout Motors is now, people said that was a bad deal. But what did BMW do for not only the upstate, but all of South Carolina?
Right.
So-
Did we give BMW the incentives that we've offered Scout Motors?
I would say
And-
probably not, because at that time, we didn't give them that level of incentives. And I'd say financially, I mean, go back, that's in 2000, 80, I got to get back in there. What is it? Late 80s is when BMW came in. I'm sure, they received incentives. I can't tell you the difference in the two packages, though.
So is Scout Motors, are they building that facility now in the Lexington area? What is going on with that
It's
now?
my understanding it's under construction. I haven't been up there to physically see it, but it's up I-77 going up. Blythewood is where it is in Columbia.
Okay. Because I hadn't heard much lately about it. And I know we gave, $1.4 billion in incentives to get them to come to South Carolina.
This is a large number. I can't remember the exact number.
Okay, thank you.
I just had one question, and then when people were talking, now I came up with another one. But are we at any place close to having closed primaries?
Not in the state as a whole. The lower part of the state, and I got a bill in there for closing primaries. I think if you had to have a vote of the upstate legislators, I think you would close primaries. When you get to the low country, that's the ones that are fighting us on it. We're so Republican here, everybody says I'm a Republican. I mean, there's a few that aren't, but just about everybody does. It doesn't, and here's where it's an interesting spin on it. It doesn't impact businesses up here. In other words, if I register as a Republican and I go down as a contractor and I go down and try to sell a job to Bojangles, I'm just going to pick them to build a Bojangles, and somebody checks to see if I'm a registered Republican or Democrat, and I'm a registered Republican, they're probably going to give me a contract. In the low country, people down there, they don't want to be identified with one party or the other because it's such a mixed group down there that they feel like it's going to hurt their businesses and all that kind of stuff. So that's the spin on it that I never really thought about. But to answer your question, I think we're going to be discussing it again, and we may get it passed. But, I think it's.
All right, second question. You mentioned something about renaming a roundabout, I guess. You said they're talking about what they're going to name it. So my question is, who is it that actually names those things? Because there's some veterans that live down in Pumpkin Town that have become aware of that. They're going to replace that bridge right there by the cafe in Pumpkin Town. Right now, the one off 135 is still in process. So some of the veterans that live there had asked me if we knew how they could get that Pumpkin Town Bridge named after a veteran that they knew that died during the Vietnam War.
That's Is that 1, 2, 3? One, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. To answer your question, the General Assembly on state roads, the House, the Senate, we have to pass a bill, a resolution doing that. So to answer your question, is between now and January, we cannot do that. Which bridge? And I'm.
The bridge that's off on Highway 8, right there by Pumpkin Town Cafe. They're going to be taking that one down once
It depends on which one you want named, but the bottom line is that the delegation can do that.
Okay.
So you come. Yeah, you're welcome to come talk to me, and if if you got 10 people wanting to name 10 different things, it's an issue. But if you got the communities getting behind it, it shouldn't be a problem to name it after a veteran, especially one that died in Vietnam.
Okay. Let's come back to you. I didn't come to you because I always. Try to be succinct.
So I just want to touch base on two things. I want to talk about actually three things. One is the budget. You're right. We are leaving our kids with a tremendous debt. And part of the Republican creed that we all announced is that we will not trade our dignity for a handout, but yet school choice is just giving a handout to the parents who chose to not come out. Now, with the school choice, because of the budget, it's going to increase the budget in 27-28 by $1.6 billion, while it's not really defunding the SCDE, who keeps going up, according to Senator Hembry. The cost per pupil is going up faster than the rate of inflation. So we keep codifying more and more educational laws, which will then bring me to the cost of, parental rights law. By the way, I know some of these people in the room from Moms for Liberty. I think they're wonderful people, but I disagree with the Parental Rights Office. First of all, that's going to cost a ton of money because you're actually growing government, which is anti-conservative and anti-Republican. And the reason people think we need a parental rights office is because we keep codifying so many more educational laws that put the state's departments involved in families' lives more and more, that the state is now recognizing that maybe they have too much power. So the office is saying, well, we realize we might have too much power, so we're going to give the parents the opportunity to come after us if we're overstepping our grounds. But why do we have to go and create more of a government to have control over what we can say our rights are, which are innumerable, which means you cannot delineate them, and writing a parental rights office is actually going to delineate our rights, so we actually lose rights to the state, because now we're making an agreement with the state that the state is going to recognize these are our laws, but it's going to cost money. But back to the library real quick. Why isn't anybody going after the protections that are set up that the libraries and the schools are the only ones that it's okay to give pornographic material to kids to? Like, why aren't we going to repeal those laws that give the school? So, you know, if you came up to my child as a personal, and you gave my kid a book, it's, yeah, I'm asking for the library.
I think I know where she's going. Let's give her a minute.
With the library, why wouldn't you go after removing the protections that the library school from giving inappropriate materials to the school? And in addition to that, the county libraries are only funded by law that they can only have professionals that are accredited by the American Library Association, but the American Library Association is currently run by a Marxist president. So why are we continuing to fund the corruption that we know? So why, I'm asking, for like, in terms of, like, why don't we start removing bills instead of growing government to cover up a bill that another bill had created to begin with, and now we need another solution to cover up that problem we created, and then that solution leads to another, we need another solution. Like, all I see is government growing, which is putting more of a cost not only on the taxpayers, but our kids. Like, I don't understand how it's a Republican or conservative move. Yes, I was just bringing up the budget someone had suggested with the library and with the parental rights. I'm just voicing another concern on the other side, because a national legislative lobbyist group doesn't represent me, we the people. It represents whatever that legislative national group is pushing.
I think what you were asking is, why is there protection in place for people that work in the libraries that exempts them from prosecution on providing pornographic material?
That's one question, and the other question is well, that's a good question, and that has been explored. I'm looking at that, the possibility of changing that. Obviously, the reason that was put in there, and I'm having to go back in time to when that was put in there, and I don't have a clue, but if somebody at the library, let's just say there was a medical book that was in that had pictures in it with a medical procedure that somebody might say, hey, that's pornographic because of the way it looks. They're trying to protect them from that, not from what's going on today. So that needs to be changed. And in terms of the budget, I don't understand how we're trying not to increase the budget, but we keep making more and more state agencies that keep increasing the budget. For me, that's double speak. So, this isn't just you. I've asked many other legislators these questions.
I'll tell you what I want to do. I want you and I to have a good one-on-one meeting and give me all your facts so that I can go back and get good answers for you.
Sure, I'd love that.
Yeah. I'll give you. My cell phone is available. You can call me anytime. I'll meet, and you can ask anybody in here. I'll go meet with you and listen to you. I may not have the answer you want to hear, but we'll work on it. Yes, ma'am.
Senator Rice, I would like to address that question about the Office of Parental Rights that Josh Kimbrell is proposing. It is not to regulate, as this young lady here thinks it might be. I think that where Josh Kimbrell is coming from is guaranteeing parents the right to be parents, to not be, where I'm going with this is that Senator Kimbrell was in the same situation that my father was in 1967, where children are being used as pawns in divorce cases. And somebody needs to stand up for the parents, make sure that the parents are being treated fairly, because divorce court, as we all know, is any other type of litigation. Somebody's the good guy, somebody's the bad guy. In reality, probably all parties are a little bit of everything. But I believe where Senator Kimbrell is coming from on this, he was treated very, very, very unfairly in the courts because of a divorce situation where he was not allowed access to his child. My father was subjected to the same thing in the 60s with myself and my little sister. So I understand he just wants all parents to have a fair shake. Not that he's going to tell you, you can do this or you can't do that with your child, because that is way too big brother, and I'm sure that that's not where he's coming from.
I would love to continue this conversation with you, because I do see that as being the point, but there's other parts to the bill, and I feel that aside from that one good talk.
No mic, no talk.
Sorry.
All right. Yeah, I just want to say, as an explanation, this is not a question, but an explanation for why parental bills of rights are pursued across this country. And in this case, a parental rights office is, you know, the idea that the government doesn't allow you to sue them unless they allow you to sue them, right? And the way that you do that is embedding it in state statute. And it's like with these parental bills of rights, parents have no recourse. Yes, it's an inherent right. It's a God-given fundamental right that we have the right to parent our children the way that we see fit. But if the government oversteps that right, what recourse do we have? You say, oh, you take the government to court. Well, that's great. But the court has developed legal standards, and the most commonly used legal standard is a rational-based test. And that rational-based test puts the onus, puts the burden of proof on who? The parent. So almost 100 times out of 100, the parents are going to lose. Whereas with these parents' bill of rights, and in this case, a parent office of parental rights, it goes according to a strict scrutiny standard, which puts the onus or the burden of proof upon who? The government. And thus, the parent has the advantage in that type of case. And that's the whole point of these parents' bills of rights across the country. And the idea behind, founding in Florida an Office of Parental Rights, so that parents have that recourse when the government oversteps, yes, their fundamental right to parent their child.
Okay, I look forward to hearing that debate in subcommittee, because that's where a lot of that is hashed out.
I'm going to let this lady have the last question here. It's after 8. It was 8:15, so have at it.
Hi, you know what I noticed? That every time we write a bill, the next section, they put another bill to take away our rights. And we always have to be nervous as to what we're going to do next. And that's no way to live. We already have rights as parents. God gave them to us. Why do we need to write something like they're a bunch of ignorant people? They are not. Either we have corrupt judges or we have good judges. Just look at America, where we are, okay? And none of you, very little of you, know what it's all about school choice. You are losing your rights, and you don't even know that this is a UN agenda. And I can tell you why. Because I'm Ukrainian descendant, and my father from Belarus, and they immigrated to South America running from communism. This is a communist. We are giving our children for more woke agenda. Just look at every time. I've been going to the State House, and I've been talking about the books that you have in the schools, and nobody does anything. So I'm just saying we shouldn't put any more bills for parental rights, because these people are going to take it away from us.
Okay. Thank you all. I'll only add one thing to this myself personally. Got nothing to do with Rex. I've been fighting for school choice for 40 years. It's been part of the Republican Party platform forever. I'm come from the school of Milton Friedman and competition where the money follows the child. competition always improve. You get a better outcome. You get a better product for a better price and better innovation if you have competition. Monopolies don't work anywhere, and that's what we have now in education is a monopoly. But that's just my opinion. I'll throw that out there. It is in the South Carolina Republican Party platform, school choices. So anyway, I would thank you all for coming, and Senator Rice for just stepping in at the last minute. And the one thing that we should all be in favor of is the arena of ideas. And we shouldn't be suppressing anybody's ideas and anybody's opinions. That's what this country was built on, and having a healthy civil debate. I mean, you know, Jefferson and Adams weren't always civil, but they had a debate and figured it out in the end. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for your questions. Have a safe trip home.